The morning I found the letter, the air smelled like fresh-cut grass and diesel. I thought it was just another delivery until I saw the fancy gold seal. Willowbrook Homeowners Association. The name alone made my stomach turn. I didn't belong to any HOA. I'd made sure of that when I bought this land, but the envelope had my address printed on it, clear as day. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Dear Mr. Morrison, your 15-acre property will host our annual Willowbrook Community Barbecue this Saturday. Thank you for your cooperation. HOA President Karen Deborah Wyndham. No signature, no request, no permission, just pure entitlement. I stared at that page, the smell of paper and printer ink thick in the air, and then I laughed. A quiet, sharp laugh that came from somewhere deep. This woman had no idea who she was dealing with. By Saturday morning, 10 charter buses roared up my dirt road, engines growling like thunder. Dust clouds rolled across my property as 400 guests stepped off, fanning themselves in the Texas heat, holding folding chairs and coolers. They were confused. Some looked apologetic, others just followed orders. Catering trucks parked crooked across my driveway, and the noise of generators drowned out the sound of birds in the trees. Then she arrived. White Cadillac Escalade, chrome polished to a mirror. Vanity plates that read CHOA Boss. Out stepped Karen Deborah Wyndham, 59 years old, all hairspray and designer perfume, walking like she owned the county. She strutted toward me in 3-inch heels, the kind that sank into my gravel driveway with every step. Her perfume mixed with the heavy smell of diesel and barbecue smoke. "Good morning, Jake," she called out, her voice sugary and cold at the same time. "Welcome to the community." I wiped the sweat from my brow, leaned against my pickup and waited. She flashed a folder thick with papers. The kind of official nonsense people like her use to scare folks into obedience. "We're hosting our annual barbecue," she said, opening the folder like it was the Constitution. "It's good for the neighborhood, and your property is perfect for it. You'll love being part of our community." I stared at her. "Ma'am, I'm not in your community." Her smile froze, but her eyes stayed sharp. "Oh, Jake, geography is just paperwork," she said, waving a manicured hand. "We'll fix that." That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just arrogance, it was a declaration of war. See, I'd bought this land after 30 years of crawling through electrical panels and cramped apartments, dreaming of wide-open skies. My Uncle Eddie had left me $180,000 from a lifetime of construction work, and I'd spent every cent on this piece of Texas freedom. 15 acres outside any HOA jurisdiction. I checked the county survey myself, 200 feet past their boundary. That's what made it perfect. But to Karen, boundaries were suggestions. Week 1, I got my first anonymous noise complaint for using a circular saw at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. Week 2, someone reported me for running an illegal business because I helped a neighbor jumpstart his car. Week 3, code enforcement showed up about my unsightly vegetable garden. It didn't take a genius to trace all 3 back to one person. Karen's harassment wasn't random, it was strategic. I could have yelled. I could have fought her in the street, but I'd spent too many years as an electrician to lose my temper when a circuit shorted. You trace the problem, document the evidence, and fix it permanently. So I started recording. Every time her Escalade parked halfway across my driveway, every time one of her board members just happened to leave their car near my gate. Every time she walked the perimeter of my fence at night with a flashlight, pretending to inspect community lighting. One morning I measured the exact distance between her car and my driveway entrance, 3 feet, 2 inches. City ordinance required 4. I photographed, time-stamped, and submitted everything to parking enforcement. By the end of the month, Karen had collected 8 parking tickets totaling $680. That was when the real fun began. Instead of backing down, she gathered her little army, 12 board members and a few loyal neighbors, and started holding neighborhood watch meetings right in front of my house every Tuesday night. They stood in the street gossiping about me, saying things like, "He's antisocial," or "He's dangerous." They thought I couldn't hear. But Texas is a one-party consent state. My cameras caught every word. Karen's voice was crystal clear on the recording. "We need to make life so uncomfortable that he joins the HOA just to get peace." Those words were all I needed. When you've worked with electricity long enough, you learn to respect power, but you also learn how to shut it off. I started filing my own paperwork, certified letters, cease and desist notices, formal demands for reimbursement after she damaged my fence. Each one signed, dated, and legally mailed. She wanted a paper war? I was fluent in paperwork. Then one night I caught her on camera creeping around my shed with bolt cutters. 2:13 a.m., trying to steal tables and chairs for her next event. Her flashlight beam danced over my equipment while her bracelets jingled like wind chimes in the dark. When my floodlights kicked on, she ran, heels clacking across the gravel, but the footage was gold. By sunrise, 3 certified letters were already on their way. But Karen didn't scare easy. A week later, she tried flipping the script, filed a police report claiming I had threatened her. When the officers came knocking, I smiled, offered them coffee, and showed them the footage of her midnight burglary attempt. They left shaking their heads, warning her about false reports. That's when the tide turned. Randy, the HOA treasurer, showed up at my door one evening, hands shaking, reeking of coffee and fear. "Jake," he whispered, spreading out HOA financials across my kitchen table. "She's been stealing from us. Faking invoices, forging my signature, paying her own company." I leaned back in my chair and smiled. The smell of cedar mulch from my garden drifted in through the window. Karen thought she was the queen of Willowbrook, but she'd just handed me the rope to hang her entire empire. And that's how the war for my land truly began. The night Randy showed me those financial records, thunder rolled across the Texas sky like a warning. He sat at my kitchen table, coffee trembling in his hands, while sheets of rain tapped the window. Each clap of thunder seemed to underline his words. "She's been stealing for years, Jake," he said, voice low. "Forged checks, fake invoices, even paying herself for landscaping that never happened." The smell of burnt coffee filled the air, and for a long moment neither of us spoke. The truth sat heavy between us. Karen hadn't just been a bully, she was a criminal. "Randy," I said finally, "you ready to help me end this?" Quote. He nodded. "I've been waiting for someone brave enough to try." By the next morning my plan was in motion. Every minute of her harassment, every false complaint, every video of her trespassing, it was all backed up, labeled, and dated. Frank Rodriguez, a retired sheriff's deputy from 2 houses down, agreed to help us organize the evidence. Maria Santos, the sweet 73-year-old widow who always brought me tamales, volunteered to type transcripts. She called it justice in slow cooker form. Karen, meanwhile, had no idea the noose was tightening. She started showing up at midnight again. My motion sensors caught her walking my fence line with a flashlight and spray paint. She was measuring my land like she was mapping a war zone. When the camera caught her painting trees and muttering about tent placement, I realized she wasn't bluffing about her so-called barbecue. She was really gonna host an HOA event on land she didn't own. I didn't stop her. I watched, waited, and documented every move. The late-night planning, the forged authorization letters, even the contracts she signed using HOA funds. My lawyer nearly fell out of his chair when he saw the paperwork. "She's creating a public event on private property without consent," he said, shaking his head. "That's trespass, embezzlement, and misuse of community funds. She's practically begging for handcuffs." Karen's arrogance hit new heights that week. She went door to door, telling residents the barbecue was set for community green space, 1847 Maple Ridge Drive. That was my address. My name wasn't on a single page, yet she'd spent over $5,000 in HOA money on food, tents, and a live band. She even invited the local news for a story about community unity. It was perfect. She'd just built her own legal coffin and sent out invitations. The night before the event, my house became mission control. The smell of Maria's homemade empanadas filled the air while Frank spread evidence folders across the table. Randy laid out the forged checks, his eyes focused but full of relief. "Tomorrow," he said, "she's going to destroy herself." I upgraded my security system. 12 4K cameras, 2 backups, cloud storage, and an electronic gate controlled from my phone. The gate could only be opened from inside my house once locked. Frank tested it twice, grinning. "It's foolproof," he said. "She'll walk right into her own trap." Jessica, Maria's daughter, worked for Channel 7 News. She agreed to film the event under the guise of covering the, quote, community barbecue. Her crew would capture everything: Karen's trespassing, her lies, and her meltdown. I barely slept that night. The Texas air was thick and hot, crickets screaming outside, but all I could think about was my Uncle Eddie. He'd dreamed of this land being a place of peace. Tomorrow, it would be a battlefield, but one that would finally bring peace back to everyone Karen had hurt. Saturday morning came bright and loud. By 7 a.m., the first catering truck rumbled down the road, diesel exhaust thick in the air. Then came the Escalade, spotless as always. Karen stepped out in a white pantsuit, hair perfect, lips glossy, sunglasses gleaming. She looked like she was about to host a presidential rally. "Come on through," she shouted to the crew. "Set up by the big oak tree. We've got plenty of space." The drivers hesitated, glancing at the private property signs. "Ma'am, are you sure we're in the right place?" Karen waved them off with that same plastic smile. "I am the community president. Everything's cleared." She strutted toward my front door and started pounding on it like a cop with a warrant. "Jake, be reasonable and open up. This is for everyone's benefit." Her voice echoed through my living room. I didn't answer. I just watched the security feed, sipping my coffee while the news cameras rolled. By 8:30, she brought in a locksmith, trying to claim emergency access. The poor guy took one look at my property deed and backed away fast. "Lady, this ain't community land," he said. "You touch that lock, and you're the one getting arrested." Karen's smile cracked. For the first time, she looked unsure. Then the buses arrived, 10 of them. One after another, roaring down the narrow neighborhood street like a parade from hell. The ground shook as they parked, engines hissing, brakes squealing. 400 people poured out in the rising heat, kids crying, old folks sweating, everyone confused and looking for shade. Karen ran to meet them, waving like a queen greeting her subjects. "Welcome, everyone," she announced into her megaphone. "Don't mind the little misunderstanding with the owner. It's been handled?" It hadn't been handled. It was being recorded. Jessica's camera crew filmed everything. The trespass, the lies, the chaos. Police had already been alerted by Frank, who watched from the sidelines with folded arms. Karen was still giving interviews about community harmony when I finally stepped outside. The sun was high, the smell of barbecue already thick, and my boots crunched against gravel as I walked to the gate control panel. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said loudly enough for the crowd and the cameras, "welcome to my land. You're all trespassing, but don't worry, I'm not here to cause trouble. In fact, I'll let everyone in." Karen's eyes lit up smug and triumphant. She actually smiled at me. I pressed the button. The gates swung open with a slow, metallic groan, sunlight glinting off the steel. Buses and catering trucks rolled in. Guests cheered. Karen strutted through the gate like she'd won the war. She didn't realize she'd just entered her own cage. For 30 minutes, everything seemed normal. Laughter, chatter, music. Karen posed for interviews about community unity while holding a plate of ribs. Then, at precisely 12:15 p.m., I raised the remote again. The crowd quieted. Even the band stopped playing. "Just one more thing," I said calmly, my voice steady over the loudspeakers. "This entire event was planned without my permission, and it's all been recorded. Every contract, every dollar of HOA money spent, every lie told to these guests." Karen froze, smile gone. "And since you're all on my private property," I added, pressing the second button, "you're not leaving until law enforcement arrives." Click. The gates locked with a clean, cold snap that echoed through the air like a verdict. Karen spun toward the fence, panic flashing in her eyes. "What have you done, Jake?" she shouted. I looked straight into the Channel 7 camera. "I just delivered justice." And that was the exact moment the sirens began to wail in the distance. The sound of those sirens was the sweetest music I'd ever heard. Somewhere behind me, a grill clanged shut. The laughter stopped. The whole crowd turned toward the front gate where the blue lights flickered against the dust and the heat haze. Even the kids went quiet. Karen's face had gone white. She looked from me to the gate and back, her mouth opening and closing like she was trying to find the right spell to undo what she'd just done. "Jake," she hissed, forcing a smile, her voice cracking under the weight of panic. "You're making a mistake. These are my people. We're guests, not trespassers." "Guests need invitations," I said calmly. "You forged yours." The police cruisers rolled up, tires crunching the gravel and the smell of hot engines mixed with barbecue smoke. Officer Williams stepped out first, the same one who'd warned Karen about false reports weeks ago. He took one look at the locked gate, the buses, the news camera, and the crowd of bewildered residents and muttered, "Good Lord." Karen straightened her blazer and marched toward him like a politician at a press conference. "Officer," she said, her voice trembling with forced confidence, "this man has taken community property hostage. I demand you order him to open the gate." Williams raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, this address is private property. We've reviewed the records." Karen blinked, clearly caught off guard. No, you don't understand. The HOA owns this land. Ma'am." Williams cut her off, holding up a folder. "County records show this parcel belongs solely to Mr. Jake Morrison. And right now, you're standing on it without permission. That's criminal trespass." Her fake smile shattered. "This is a misunderstanding," she shouted. He's an extremist. He's trying to destroy our community." Jessica's camera zoomed in, capturing every word, every twitch, every frantic glance. I stepped forward, holding a thick manila folder. "Officer, if you'd like evidence, here's everything. Financial records showing $31,847 embezzled from HOA funds, forged checks, and recordings of her threatening homeowners. There's also footage of her attempting to break into my property with bolt cutters." Williams flipped through the papers, his expression turning from disbelief to fury. "Is this your signature, ma'am?" Karen's voice went shrill. "You can't prove anything." Quote, "I think Channel 7 can," I said, gesturing to Jessica and her cameraman. The microphone picked up everything, Karen's lies, her denials, her breakdown. The officers exchanged looks. Then came the words I'd been waiting for. "Karen Deborah Wyndham, you're under arrest for criminal trespass, fraud, and embezzlement." Her scream echoed across the property as Williams reached for her wrists. "You can't arrest me. I am the HOA," she shrieked, stumbling in her designer heels. The metallic click of the handcuffs was like the final note of a perfect song. As the crowd watched in stunned silence, Karen was led toward the gate, kicking up dust and humiliation. Someone started clapping, soft at first, then louder, until the whole crowd joined in. Even the band's drummer hit his snare in rhythm with the applause. Officer Williams gave me a small nod. "We'll take it from here, Mr. Morrison." Quote, I hit the button, the gate swinging open again, and the buses began to roll out, one by one, leaving tire tracks and stunned faces behind. When the last bus disappeared down the road, I turned off the speakers, locked my front door, and sat on my porch with a glass of sweet tea. The evening breeze carried the faint scent of smoked ribs and justice. That night, Channel 7 aired the footage. The headline, HOA President Arrested for Trespassing on Homeowner's Land During Barbecue. It went viral before dawn. Millions watched Karen's meltdown, her arrest, and the moment I locked the gate, within 48 hours, she'd been charged with multiple felonies: embezzlement, fraud, criminal trespass, and abuse of authority. Her real estate license was suspended, and the HOA board unanimously voted her out. Randy became the new president and immediately launched a forensic audit. Turns out Karen had been stealing from her neighbors for nearly a decade. The court ordered her to repay $95,000 in damages and barred her from holding any HOA or real estate position for life. She took a plea deal: probation, community service, and public apology. The irony? Her first assigned task was cleaning up public parks, including the same road leading to my driveway. As for me, the neighborhood changed overnight. People who once avoided me now waved from their porches. Maria still brings tamales every Tuesday. Derek and Emma bring their baby by to play with my dogs. Even Officer Williams stops in for coffee sometimes, calling my place the most peaceful 15 acres in Texas. The HOA transformed too. Randy and Frank created new bylaws requiring full transparency, monthly reports, and resident votes for all spending. We even set up a legal fund to help homeowners fight HOA abuse across the state. The first year we helped 12 families. By year 2, over 100. My land, once a battlefield, became a gathering place. Veterans, young families, old-timers, they all come here for barbecues that actually have permission. Every year on the same weekend Karen held her disastrous party, we host the Freedom Festival. We grill, we laugh, and we raise money for homeowners fighting back against corruption. When the wind blows through the pines, it carries the faint scent of smoke and jasmine, the same mix that hung in the air the day Karen's empire fell. Sometimes I sit on my porch at sunset, the sky burning orange over the hills, and think about my Uncle Eddie. He wanted this land to mean something, to be a place where people stood up for what was right. I think he'd be proud, because in the end, it wasn't just about beating Karen. It was about proving that no bully, no matter how powerful, loud, or connected, can steal what's yours when you stand your ground. If you've ever had your peace threatened by a power-hungry HOA, remember this: documentation, patience, and truth will always beat corruption. I'm Jake Morrison, and that's how one stubborn electrician turned 15 acres of Texas dirt into a victory for every homeowner who ever said, "Enough." Now tell me in the comments, what would you have done if your HOA tried to steal your land? And if you enjoyed this story of justice served hot, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because next week I've got another HOA meltdown that'll make your blood boil and your heart cheer.